Hi, I wanted to talk about Demon Slayer. I completed Demon Slayer in January, so I've had some time to think about it. By complete, I mean got all the trophies on PlayStation and got the platinum. Uh, One of the main thoughts I had was thinking about the story of Demon Slayer. I'm a huge fan of the anime, um, but the game retreads the anime's story. Now, it does it n somewhat poorly. So my question is if I think Demon Slayer's story is quite good. I like it. It's not revolutionary, but it's just told very well. Now, if you have a good story, but you tell it somewhat poorly, does that make the story of the game good? Think about like your favorite game and how that story is told. You know, Metal Gear Solid 3 is told through cutscenes. It's David Hayter's voice. He's voice acting Solid Snake. Now, what if that same story was told through like JPEGs? It's the same plot points, it's the same characters, it's the same character development, but without the cutscenes, without the voice acting, is it as effective? I have to admit that the story in Demon Slayer in the game is good because I like the Demon Slayer story, but I also think that it's told very poorly through the game. It's disjointed. The way you select cutscenes and story development is not in the flow of the campaign, so to speak. It was really interesting thinking about this. Like, what if it's like the it's the best book you've ever read, but when it becomes a movie, it's told differently and it sucks, right? I think that's at play here. It's just not as good as watching the anime if you want the story.
Finally, you're going home as promised. Back to Mount Sagiri. If only as souls.
Now, the other problem that the story mode has is
You're going
it's
home
full of boring
to
fights.
Aokodaki.
I don't know if you're familiar with Demon Slayer, but like part of the hook of the whole show is that Tanjiro is constantly fighting really interesting and unique demons that all have different powers.
Only four of
Now,
us.
the game decides that you're gonna have to fight generic like temple demons or generic demon from the mountain or this other generic city demon, and these fights are just repeated over and over again with like uh in some cases I believe it was different move sets, but mostly it's just like higher damage numbers, and the campaign is basically so easy that these higher damage numbers mean nothing unless you're trying to get S ranks, which as you go for the platinum, you will want to try and get these S ranks. Contrary to that, on the same side of that coin, the game is full of incredible, really fun fights, and these are usually the end of the chapters in the campaign. So there's several chapters. At the end, you'll fight like a boss monster, and this boss monster will have like a crazy cutscene, like you saw at the start of this podcast here, where you're doing like these quick time events, and everything's super flashy, and it's drawing all the best parts from the show to give you like this really exciting hype moment right at the end of the chapter before you lead on to the next story bit. So for every generic fight in a campaign, there's also like a really cool fight. So it kind of balances out. So you're never quite really that bored. They do a good job of all these generic fights happen while you're exploring the world. So you're kind of doing two things at once, and then it kind of rewards you at the end with like this really exciting fight. So just a pair on that, like the graphics I felt were like incredible. They're equal with all the Naruto games, which in the last 5 or 6 Naruto games, they've all been fantastic graphics wise. This is the same. It's really good graphics, and I really appreciate, especially all the different styles, the water style and everything, where you're doing like water basin, water wheel, uh, Zenitsu's lightning style, the everything about the game has like really crisp presentation and really good graphics. I was really into the graphic side of everything. Now, I guess the thing is like you could probably tell right away by the gameplay if you're gonna be into this or if you have any like desire for this game. So that's kind of the overall or overarching question here. If you're not into the anime, would you be into this game? I I I would argue that it's probably worth a shot if you like fighting games, but if you're just not into fighting games and you've never seen the anime before, I wouldn't recommend like going through this campaign to know the story. There's an incredible story here. Watch it. Watch the anime. Don't play the game to get the story. And then if you really like the anime, you can come back here and you can play through all the best moments in the anime.
Excellent. The number of my children
So
continues to
it's
grow.
kind of like
What kinds of sword
my
fighting do you play?
more targeted opinion on this is like there's a lot of one button fighters, Jump Force, Naruto, this, and I got to think like I would recommend someone who has never played fighting games or even who has played fighting games and not a one button fighter like you got to try one of these because they're really unique and there's nothing
The fatigue is
that
killing me,
really
Monster.
draws from the same accessibility where fighting games are always trying to be like as accessible as possible but have these really complex mechanics. There's all these anime games like that they do that already. They already have that and you see fighting games starting to pull from this stuff with auto combos and
No,
having things like
it's you.
Grand Blue Fantasy
It's
Versus where you press one button and that does a Hadoken rather than having to put the input in. They're drawing from this. This is what they're drawing from. This is where they're getting that idea. So when people say like, oh, it's fighting games aren't accessible, there are a genre, a specific genre of fighting games that are accessible. It's
Why'd
here.
you have to sleep for so
Um,
long?
so even if you're not into
No,
anime, you're not into
please,
fighting games,
you
yeah,
won't
maybe
let me
pass on
go.
this. But if you're into anime and you don't know anything about Demon Slayer, maybe this is worth it. If you're into fighting games but you've never played a one button fighter, out of all the one button fighters I've played, which there's only a handful, there's only three or four that I've played, this is the one. This is the one in my opinion to play. Uh, Naruto adds a bunch of different things, like there's a couple different meter management things going on. There's um, typically you're controlling more characters than one, whereas this game you do have the option to play two people, but you're typically you have your one person and an assist, not really playing two people. Um, that being said, like the game is sort of dead at this point. I don't think a lot of people are playing it, unfortunately. Um, so the nature of fighting games, the best part of them is fighting people online. Not only is this game dead, but it did have plenty of issues online. Uh, it's not rollback netcode or anything. There's not any good way to sugarcoat this. The online was okay at best. Sometimes it worked, and when it worked, it was a lot of fun. But I found at least one in three matches was really good. So that left a lot to be desired. The only thing I'd say is other than that, like one button fighters have like a lot of hidden depth to it, and people seem to gloss over
My
that.
name is
It's
Hayanezuka.
it's one of those
I
things
was
where
Tanjiro
if
Kamado.
there's no barrier to
I am here to
execution,
deliver.
I run up to an opponent, I'm doing like mashing square and then triangle, and that's the combo.
In
And
here
then I
is
do a
where
couple things to
champions
extend the
die.
combo. That's it. That's your barrier to
Introducing
execution.
myself.
Um,
So then what separates
what's
someone
The
who can
materials
do
for
that
this kind of
to a
sword
good player,
only come
right?
from the mountains
That's
of
the hidden depth of
Kimetsu.
this. When
Made of
you can
soft
start
iron
moving your
steel
character
smooth
around
as
the arena
butter.
better than your opponent. You
hey,
can start countering and parrying and doing all these other small
Made of
things.
steel that can absorb
It makes it
sand.
like a really fun fighter.
really?
At its peak, this game is really good. And I think people ignore it because it's anime and people ignore it because it's a one button fighter. But I think that does such a disservice. It's actually a pretty good game. And I think if people were more willing to give these kind of things a chance, we could get something really special. Um, I don't know if it has to come outside of anime because all the one button fighters are always these anime fighters. So it'd be really interesting to see a developer do something that's a totally unique IP in this same style, maybe a little bit more depth with rollback netcode and a well written, well presented story. I think people would be so drawn to it. And yeah, so that's my thoughts after completing Demon Slayer on the PS5 and getting the platinum. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if this is something you guys like. I'd like to do more of these. I have two other ones that I have in the back pocket that I'm wanting to do. And yeah, thanks for taking a listen. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. I'm on all the social medias. Bye.